A lot of people and organizations care about Black and brown kids and their future. But what are we missing? Welcome to the Road to Ambition podcast. In every episode, we're exploring a new angle on what our teens need to thrive in college, career, and in life. We're on a mission to turn every teen's smartphone into a device that guides them towards personal transformation and truly thriving. Join our founder, Remy Shabomahin, along with others, as we delve into the journey of ambition and share insights on making a meaningful impact on Black and brown teens. Thanks for joining us.
Today, what we want to talk about is this overarching question, impact. How do you measure it? How do you understand it? I remember years ago, I was kind of pitching to a vice principal actually. And I had been working inside schools doing youth development work for a couple of years. And it was the first time I got really busted by a question, meaning I was stumped because I developed this pitch. And after I gave my pitch, the vice principal just said, "Hey, if you could just kind of summarize, what will our students get out of this? If you had one sentence." And I was just like, ah. And then I just proceeded to talk for, I think, like 19 minutes.
Yeah.
And my face was probably flush. I was hot. It just was so overwhelming. It's such a challenging question. So before we kind of get into this specific impact of Ambition Angels, I'm just curious about your own. Do you have a story like that? I mean, how have you learned how to describe it and talk about it?
Yeah. Every organization, every youth development organization that I've been a part of has struggled with this.
Yeah.
And I think it's because it's inherent in what a youth developer is, right?
Yeah.
Like we think about two kind of modes for a student. They're either in school or they're out of school, right? And in school, it's very clear. There are academic subjects that we have deemed most relevant for young people to know nationwide.
Yeah.
There are standards. There are standardized tests to measure that. It's very clear. And every teacher's role is very clear and defined within that. But as a society, we know that that's not all we want for our kids.
Yeah.
And so then comes the outside of school people. Right. Chief among them is parents, right? And then in collaboration with parents are youth developers. People who are thinking, okay, we have a vision of young people as we see the whole child as these like thriving adults.
Right.
And we think, okay, what do they need so that the 25, the 35-year-old is thriving in all areas of their life? And that's what every individual parent wants for their individual kid. Yeah. But as a youth developer, you're essentially signing up to play that role for a lot of kids.
Right.
And so it makes it really hard when one kid really needs support with their mental health. Another kid really needs support with their academics. Another is hyper focused on entrepreneurship. And as a youth developer, you go to like any boys and girls club, and they're usually it's a accumulation of a lot of different programs.
Yeah,
they have a culinary program and academic support and sports, and so it's like, what are they trying to do? They're trying to do for all of their kids what every parent is trying to do: long-term thriving. Right. And that inherent in that is a challenge around measuring and finding one data point that can show that you are making the impact. So I just want to acknowledge that, like, this is a challenge for anyone who is in the youth development space. Am I right?
It's so tricky because in many ways, like you're saying, it's abstract what we do. It's intangible. And yet, obviously, there are people, stakeholders, whether it's schools, funders, sometimes even kids, they want to know, like, what am I going to get out of this? What's going to happen? Right. And it is our burden to figure that out. And 100%. I know I've gone on this journey for the last many 20-something years of trying different ways to measure it, different ways to talk about it. And I've failed in so many times. I remember there was a time we hired someone. She was helping us develop this assessment survey for this program that we had. And the main thing I was selling was, this will increase your students' self-awareness. And then I was trying to connect like self-awareness then, and I was like all these dots to all the academic achievement, graduation rates, etc. And the first group, we examined the data. She gave us a synthesis. And what it turned out was we apparently depleted their self-awareness. So students were less self-aware at the end of it than they were at the beginning. And it was just like, it is one of the worst, lowest moments of my professional life. I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I am deforming them. I'm not forming their shape.
Or so the data shows.
Yeah. And there was a way to say, students are very confident at the beginning. Yeah, I know myself. And then you actually help them understand there's a lot more to, but it is our burden. So I'm curious for you with ambition now, where are you at in that process?
Yeah. And so we've thought about impact in two ways. One, we want to really make sure that we're measuring and thinking very strategically about the quality of our input.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Let's say you go to the gym. After day one, you're not going to see the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And for every single person who goes to the gym consistently, they may not see the same impact on outcomes after 4 weeks, 5 weeks. But you really want to make sure, is what we're inputting the right inputs? Is it well researched? Is it and then we could at least be confident of that as we track the more, so this is the classic like leading measures, lagging measures type of deal, right? And so we do want to make sure that we're looking at the input. And for us, we have thought about our input in this kind of classic youth developer type of way, which is really thinking about the whole child and the whole life. Mm-hmm. And so before I talk about outcomes, I just want to reiterate kind of our inputs, especially around their daily development, which is all around this daily personal development in bite-sized, culturally relevant lessons, all around what we have kind of gathered as 9 areas of life.
Okay.
Right. So 1 is education, career, personal mastery, physical health, mental health, money, relationships, fun in their social life, and spirituality. And so again, like a parent, do you want your kids to be fit? Yeah. Absolutely. You want them to be really fit, fitness and nutrition. But what if they were really fit but had horrible relationships?
Yeah.
You wouldn't want that, right? Or if they have a great marriage, but they were really broke and horrible with their money. It's like, no, I actually want them to do well in all of these areas, and they all matter to kids. And when we think about low income communities, we see gaps in all of these areas, and we see the impact that, systemic racism and poverty has had on all of these across all of these areas. And so we really want to focus in on those. And so I'll start like, that's kind of like, and I think that aligns again with what parents want for their kids, what most youth development programs are trying to design around.
Here, I'll actually counter that last part. And I don't want to be critical of other youth development programs, but one of the most common things you'll hear in youth development is what we define as success and outcomes are students, for example, getting into college, or getting jobs.
That's
right. And what I hear, and I think this is why I like you and why I want to help you and partner together and work together and think together, is because you're not saying that that's the goal. And I don't want this to become like an episode where we criticize that. But you just framed it really well. As a parent, as someone who cares about a kid, if my kid gets to college and gets a good job, that is one piece of many. And in fact, I would actually say they might get into college and they might get a good job, and that might not have resolved that area of their life either. They might be lost. Or I just studied underemployment of college grads this morning as Wall Street Journal article. I mean, so you are doing the work, and even in some ways, I'll speak as a parent, not a youth developer. You're actually thinking more holistically about kids than even I am as a parent. And parents, we're managing schedules, budget, getting the room clean. I'm not thinking of like personal mastery, spirituality. I mean, like maybe, but not like in a real, like roundabout, intentional way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been really inspired by James Clear, Atomic Habits. And I think it's one of the clearest kind of like personal character life formation books that I've seen, because he's
Yeah.
talking about it's less like we get so focused on the outcome. There's actually a danger in getting too focused on the outcome
Yeah.
versus like what are the habits and the practices
Yeah.
that one needs to
Right.
be on in pursuit of those outcomes. And
Yeah.
when they come, they will come. And really there's John Wooden talks about it. He's like, the skills, the score will take care of itself. Just
Yeah.
make sure you're doing the right things.
Yeah.
And I think we're trying to help teens kind of establish the habits that will lead to
Right.
thriving in all of those areas.
Which is always a theory. I like to
That's
think
right.
about it that way. Like
That's
we
right.
think, same with habits. I think if I wake up in the morning and go on a walk around my neighborhood, that will
That's right.
yield outcomes down the road.
Yeah.
In a very analog example, I remember working in a school. This is again kind of real time, in person youth development work. And there was someone I was partnering with, and she, as students were walking in, 42 students, she painfully, awkwardly tried to get to know their names. Tell me your name. Tell me your name. And then on the way out the door, tell me your name again. And she did that week in, week out, and it was just so. It was so weird to me. I almost said something like, "Hey, could you stop doing that? Like that's like just I don't know." And then I'll never forget. It was like 6 weeks in, and so, 3 students raised their hand, and she nailed their names one after another. And all of a sudden, I thought of the outcome of students feeling known, safe, cared for, like they belong. And I was like, oh my God, that has become standard practice for how I do work and how other people do work with me.
That's
It's like
awesome.
that input of just learning the name, although awkward, I've seen yield the results of belonging, connectedness, all that stuff. So you're describing this now in an app that you believe in this theory that these inputs will yield these outcomes.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. And so we were kind of looking for I don't think we're the first ones to think like this.
Yeah,
That's what I realized. Like, I don't think we're the first ones to think, even use the term thriving, which resonated so deeply with what I want for every kid I work with.
Right.
Literally, the thought of thriving. When I say that word, and I say it every day, multiple times a day, I get chills.
Yeah.
Because the thought of that is this like, on fire in that area. Like you look to the future and you're excited about what's to come because you really think you're doing the things that are going to move you up, right? Up and to the right, essentially, right? Whether you're experiencing that or not, you're like, I'm confident I'm doing the things.
Yeah.
And so all of this again is we have long-term vision, and that is a blessing and a curse for any youth developer.
Yeah. Right.
And so we have to make sure that we're like, okay, what are the things we want to track on a consistent basis? And so we've thought about the measurement of that and what we want to track in 2 ways. We asked ourselves, what's kind of a through line impact of this daily personal development in those areas, right? And what we realized is that, again, there's deep alignment between what we're doing and many youth developers are doing. And so a lot of people have thought about this. We're just doing youth development through an app, right? But it's similar to how many folks are thinking about it. And I think one of the leading researchers and kind of designers of a framework around this is Richard Lerner and his work around positive youth development, right? And how a lot of youth development organizations are taking this approach, which has said that there are 5 markers that youth are thriving. And if we can get them on that path towards increasing in those areas, that will translate to anything they do in life.
Yeah.
Right. And so they call it the 5 C's model.
Okay.
The first is competence. So the ability to act effectively for teens at school, in social situations, at work. Competence, right? Do you know what you're doing? Do you feel like you have the skills? The second is confidence, a sense of self-worth and mastery, right? A belief that like I have the capacity to succeed, that confidence. This third is connection, this feeling of like safety and structure and belonging, that you have some type of positive bonds with people and even with institutions that you're a part of, like just like positive bonds. The fourth is character. Can you take responsibility? Is there a sense of independence of individuality? Have you established your own principles and values, and do you live in accordance with those? And the last one is caring. So that's the sympathy, the empathy for others, and even on a more
Mm.
broader sense, a kind of commitment to social justice. And so those 5 C's, and they added in a sixth one, which I'll talk about next. But is what we're doing increasing a teen's competence, confidence, connection, character, and caring?
Yeah.
Not just for the sake of increasing those, and so you're kind of happy. It is so that you can, with the sixth C is contribution,
Okay.
so that you can contribute.
Yeah.
Um,
Great
and
qualifier.
I envision a world where people, every individual person who's so incredibly unique and has such different things to offer the world,
Yeah.
is contributing to the world.
Yeah.
Right. And that concept is exciting for me on an individual basis. Just,
Yeah.
I think you just feel so much better. Life is so much better when you're contributing in a unique way. And the world is so much better. The nation is so much better.
Yeah.
And if we can have an impact on that, that is worth pursuing.
It's interesting. I love that 6C. It's something that I heard you to connect the dots. When you talk about thriving, sometimes you think of outcomes as the destination, like we made it. And so in that case, yeah, this young person has competence, is confident, is connected, etc. But what I hear you saying, what lights you up and what you're trying to do is light a spark in each one of those areas, and it's directionally increasing. And I think the real qualifier is a young person who takes that upon themselves and continues to seek to be more competent, more confident every day, contribute more, care more. And because it's not like, hey, we got you there, now you're good to go for life. It's a continual self-generating thing, like nuclear energy. It's inside you. It just continues to grow.
Yes, exactly. And I think when kids are younger, they need a youth developer, like that relationship to, like, they need that even more, right? That direct guidance, that dailiness.
Yeah.
I think as kids grow and as teens enter this space, even just brain development wise, where they're yearning for agency and autonomy, it's incumbent on us as youth developers to step back a little bit and do a little bit more empowering, right, and a little less guiding. And so I think what is cool about delivering it through an app is they're not saying, when they take a course or do a lesson on the Ambition app, they're not saying, man, thank you, Remy. I have this great relationship with this awesome youth developer who taught me this. They feel the confidence that they put the work in. They learned something. And that's, a similar feeling I get when I read a book and I'm doing my own personal development, right? And so if we can get them in the habit of that personal development, I think it will impact all of those areas, both in just the dailiness of it and in the specific content we're trying to deliver.
Something else I think I'm learning from you as I get to know the app and what you're up to, you're not just translating knowledge on these areas and those 9 separate areas of life. You're not just educating in the traditional sense, like, hey, now you know how to be financial. Now you know, but there's an action orientation to this, because from the head to the heart, so getting them to understand, to know, but then to do.
Yes.
So one, am I right on that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's one of the more critical elements to gaining confidence in any type of skill is you're being introduced to it and kind of learning some tools around it. But when you start to do it is when the confidence is built.
Yeah. So curious, how are you planning, or how are you currently trying to measure that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's one of the areas that we will grow in the most and ideate and innovate around, because as it stands right now, it's kind of very similar to a book, just in teen talk, right? Like teens aren't reading books, but wouldn't anybody who's read Atomic Habits wants their kid to read Atomic Habits?
Yeah.
Right. but they might not.
Yeah.
They might
Right.
not read it. But what if they can get the concepts, you know? And so in a similar way that Atomic Habits has these kind of like challenges and you kind of work through it to make it your own.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily tracking did you do the things, it's
Mhm.
just giving you the chance to actually develop those habits.
Yeah.
And then for us, of course, there's an opportunity for us to infuse and embed within the app a
Mhm.
kind of habit tracker type
Yeah.
of, you know, thing. Or right now they take videos after each lesson,
Yes.
committing verbally to themselves what they're going to do. And
Yes.
so, you know, showing them those videos 2 weeks later, did you do it? Did you
Uh-huh.
not? Is helpful. But I think the dailiness is really how these things become embedded in how they do it.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to a time when this kind of habit tracker concept is built within the Ambition app.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think you and I, what we're trying to do in this is also kind of like open source, open the books. And I kind of hear you saying two things. We're going to measure the
Yeah.
inputs, be really sure that the engagement is there, it's understandable, it's
Yeah.
action, like all that stuff. But also like, hey, we're going to do our best to measure this impact, which at the end of the day, you know, what else can we do?
Yeah.
As we kind of close out, I'm curious, I'd love to hear you talk if this works
Yeah.
and your theories are correct, your inputs are
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
and you bump into a young person who has
Yeah.
been doing the
Yes.
work, and whether it's been a year or two, and they're just like
Yeah.
they're in it. They've
Mm.
got their apps like right here. You've seen those social
Yeah.
media clips like, hey, do you follow me on social media? You're like, yeah, yeah. And it's a kid that's
Yeah.
like, I do this. What do you hope you hear them say?
Yeah. 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 Oh man, that's a great question. The first thing that would make me most proud is that they have a habit. They really believe in uh, personal development. They
Mm,
really, it's this sense of agency that like I'm in control of my life,
yeah,
and there are things I can do and do on a daily basis to improve in the areas of life that matter most to me. It
yeah,
would be amazing if I talked to them and they had a clear vision in each of these 9 areas
mhm,
and had a plan on how they
mhm,
were going to get there. And that's something that I think we all need at every area. What are we trying to learn? What are we
yeah,
trying to do in our career? What do we need to work on personally? What's our goals, you know, physically, in our mental health,
mhm,
with our money, with our relationships, with our marriage, with our friends, you know,
mhm,
with our fun and social life, spiritually? Do we have a vision for where we're going, where we're not right now? And is
yeah,
there something I'm doing on a consistent basis that's moving me there? And I
yeah,
think that like in a community, you know, like there are challenges facing certain communities that other communities aren't facing,
mhm,
but they're not insurmountable.
yeah,
They're not insurmountable. And that is a real deep belief we have, regardless. Okay, maybe it's a little harder for you. That's all right. Then
yeah,
what do you need to do? Then
right,
establish the vision, and it might
right,
take you a little longer. It might require a little different work. That's all right. You can do it. And I think that empowerment and that
yeah,
agency is what helps people get the best out of themselves.
yeah. Love it, and I love the fact that you're gonna be on this journey of impact, like
Yeah.
figuring out how to understand it and how to tweak it and get better. Which back to your kind of lagging measures.
Yeah.
Um, with technology, you have the ability to make quick pivots and turns,
Exactly.
enhancements, um,
Exactly. And
addition.
we're, yeah, and Scott, we're able to build the measurement into
Yeah,
the flow
yeah,
of
yeah.
the app, right? Like at many youth development organizations, they have to like take a time out from the
Totally.
program
Surveys.
and
Oh my, yeah,
surveys, and you know it's tough. So the fact
yeah,
that like right after this, we're gonna do this and this survey or ask this
yeah.
question, you write that question,
Mhm.
right? We're able to collect data in a way that many organizations have a really hard
Yeah.
time doing. A really hard time doing. And so, yes, we're built. We've already partnered with the Stanford School of Education, the Gardner Center over there, to develop our version of the five
Mhm.
C's, you know, a measurement survey,
Yeah.
and we'll be continually innovating around. Okay, and asking the question, all right, what is this daily personal development? What's the
Yeah.
impact on kind of key indicators of high school graduation. So let's say school attendance and grades.
Yeah.
What about towards career happiness and satisfaction? Okay, are they exposed? Do they have a vision? Do they have a plan? Is there a job they want? Right? Or from physical health, are they doing that? And so I think that I'm really curious, more so than anything, as we grow.
Yeah.
What does this daily personal development do in all of these different areas? And I think we can get really creative about what questions we ask, and once we put it out, then we're getting 10,000 responses, and that's some serious data to be able to reflect on, tell the story of impact on, but more importantly, iterate on the app to make it more and more impactful.
It's so challenging. I'm glad we could have this conversation. I'm sure if you're listening in, it's something that's interesting to you as well. I wish there was kind of like the gold standard already out there for how to measure this work. There isn't.
Yeah, right.
So we would love to hear from you. We love to hear your perspective, what you're learning, what hasn't worked. We would really appreciate more of us thinking in this way, because I think to your point, the stakes are so high, and we don't want to wait 10, 15, 20 years to figure out if it worked or not. We want to figure this out quickly.
That's right.
Contribute to the conversation, comment if you're watching this, or shoot us an email. But we want to see more kids thrive, and we think we're onto something, and we want to make sure we're doing it right. So thanks for being on the road to ambition, and we'll be back soon with another episode.
Thanks again for joining us on this episode of Road to Ambition. If you want to join our mission to empower Black and brown teens, reach out to us at remy@ambitionangels.org. Remember to subscribe to our podcast for more thought-provoking discussions. Until next time, stay ambitious.